Today's true crime story couldn't be more complicated, at least in terms of what a jury has to think about. It's a good example of how a case can play out differently from the time you first hear about it in the media until a jury returns with a verdict. Life is not always black and white, and that is what juries deal with varying theories, varying stories from the different parties to a trial. It also, according to many, deals with the gay panic defense, which is an extremely controversial but mostly debunked defense in North America. It deals with catfishing, a modern form of romance fraud, and self defense. So, a lot to cover in one case. Isimemen Etute was a college football player, just 18 years old, and playing for Virginia Tech as a linebacker in April 2021. He met Jerry Smith, 40, on Tinder and would later go to Smith's Blacksburg, Virginia apartment with teammate Deshaun Elder. He says he was catfished and believed that he was meeting a woman, 21-year-old emergency room doctor. That probably should have been his first clue that she claimed to be a 21-year-old doctor named Angie Renee. Smith was using the name and photos of another woman from her Facebook profile. We won't show photos of that woman whose image was used, likely unknowingly. Those close to Smith describe him as a gay man, though some news reports have reported him as a trans woman. We will represent him in the same way that those close to him have, a gay male. Once at the apartment, Etute says that the meeting was disturbing. Smith kept the apartment nearly pitch dark and hid his face. That is Etute's telling of the story. Smith obviously isn't here to tell their side. The young men left, but Etute came back, receiving a sexual favor and a $50 gift from Smith. He left then, he says, still believing that he had met a straight woman. Teammates began teasing him, though, telling him that Smith might be a man. On May 31st, another teammate, Jalen Hampton, matched with Angie Renee on Tinder. He also went to Smith's apartment but left feeling uncomfortable. Both Hampton and Smith made some contact with Etute after this initial meeting, with Smith apparently asking Etute to put in a good word with Hampton. This is where things get very sketchy and extremely poor decisions are made. Etute, Hampton, and a third teammate, Jordan Brunson, decide to go to Smith's apartment to determine his gender. Etute claims that if Smith was a woman, he might have had another encounter with Smith, but otherwise he was planning simply to leave. His teammates waited outside of the apartment. They were never charged with anything. Etute went inside and he and Smith went to the bed. He says he felt around and used a cell phone flashlight to determine that Smith had male genitalia. He confronted Smith and says that Smith grabbed at his own genitalia, at which point Etute struck Smith in the face with the back of his hand. Etute would say that this is when Smith reaches for a weapon under the bed, and Etute hit Smith several more times and stomped on Smith's face. After only 3 minutes in the apartment, Smith and his teammates left quickly, and they were seen doing that on security footage. Just a few days later, Etute would be charged with second-degree murder. Nearly every bone in Smith's face had been broken. There was a brain bleed, and there were several missing teeth. A month later, Virginia would pass a law restricting the use of the so-called gay panic defense. That new law would not apply in Etute's case, though, according to some sources. However, according to an interview of the defense lawyer with the Oxygen Network, the judge excluded the defense, so there's discrepancy in the reporting here. It is normally the case to ensure fairness that new laws do not apply to already existing cases. That is not unusual, though it may not have been what the prosecutors and others wanted in the Etute case. According to prosecutors, he would give different versions of what happened the night of May 31st to the police and to the jury. Etute's lawyers, on the other hand, describe a scene where Smith demanded it be dark and hid a knife under his mattress in case there was something awry. Police did not ask questions to Etute about Smith's knife or Etute's fears, alluding to a conclusion that the testimony wasn't actually different. There were just some omissions. Etute would say that he felt violated when he discovered that the woman he matched with on Tinder turned out to be a man. He said that Smith reached for what he thought was a gun. There was no gun, but police did find a knife under Smith's mattress, between the mattress and the box spring. Etute would make no mention of this during his police interview. Prosecutors doubted that telling, saying that there was no way Smith could have reached a weapon under the mattress. He was on the floor after Etute punched him. Etute said he punched Smith 5 times and kicked him in order to get enough time to escape the apartment. There was a big disparity between their sizes, prosecutors pointed out, with Etute being a college football player who at 6'3" weighed about 205 pounds, whereas Smith weighed in at about 153 pounds. Etute then left without calling any assistance for the obviously badly injured man. Smith was found deceased the following day by his brother. The defense in this case argued self-defense, but they also argued the debunked gay panic defense, describing Smith's actions as a deliberate, wicked sexual ruse. After the trial was over, his lawyers would put the blame on social media platforms. However, social media platforms were not teasing Etute. They did not make Etute go back to the apartment with an agenda to determine Smith's gender, and they certainly did not take Smith's life. In Virginia, it is sexual battery to have any sexual contact through a ruse, a fact that was emphasized for the jury in this case by the defense lawyer. Yet, was that enough to warrant self-defense? Smith had several previous encounters with people as Angie Renee, where he represented himself as a straight female. The fraud was wrong, no doubt, whether Smith was catfishing, but rather than taking a life, it just could have been handled so much differently. The level of violence demonstrated by the beating also, in the minds of many, cast a degree of doubt on the self-defense argument. In most states and provinces in North America, self-defense is limited to the force necessary to defend yourself or to allow yourself to escape. Not in all jurisdictions, mind you, but most. If this was a crime of passion, in the heat of the moment, in other words, it should have been voluntary manslaughter, but in the end, the jury would come back with their verdict. And in May 2022, a jury deliberated for 3 hours before finding Etute not guilty of second-degree murder. Etute's arrest resulted in a suspension from his college football team. All 4 of the teammates who were involved in this case in one way or another have transferred out of Virginia Tech. Etute enrolled with Iowa Western Community College in the NJCAA. There are a lot of sensitive and emotional issues here, so if you leave a comment, please be sure that you are respectful of others. Hateful comments just have no place on this channel, where we're here to explore and discuss legal cases. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.